Hello and welcome to the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. Today we're going over law number 11. That is the law of the inner circle. I appreciate everybody for jumping on here. If you are watching the replay, type replay. If you're with us, please like, share, and comment. Sharing into groups is what we are doing. Appreciate you guys jumping on. What's happening, Michael? Michael's with us from up north. Francisco's on. What's happening, guys? James is on. Good morning to some. Good afternoon to others. Hope things are going well. We're going over law number 11, the law of the inner circle today. So grab a pen, grab a piece of paper. If you don't have this law down and memorized, it's one of the ones that'll help you build a larger team, a faster team. Monica's with us. What's happening? And everybody wants a bigger team. Adrian's with us. Hello, sir. Monica is on. Becky is with us. Hello, hello. And Bess is here. Thank you guys for jumping on. And here we go.
Hey everyone, welcome. MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. Topic today, as Jeff probably mentioned, is the number 11, the law of the inner circle, because a leader position is determined by those closest to him. We are Jeffrey David Gamble of My Leadership Network, also a certified John Maxwell trainer, and Bess McCarty of the MLM Millionaire Club, also called the Shrink of MLM. We love bringing these to you because we love to help people grow and to educate, empower, and equip entrepreneurs and create independent servant leaders. If you're watching the replay, we'd love if you type that. I'd like to also know where you're from. And of course, if you know people who could use this, we'd love if you share that with them, especially in group. That we really thank the people who have been sharing this within groups, because we're seeing that it really does help and reach people. And Jeff, love to learn what you have to share.
Okay, guys, so what we're going to do is go over law number 11, the law of the inner circle. It says a leader's potential is determined by those closest to him. I actually have named one of my companies Inner Circle simply because of the power of being around the right group of people. It was one of the things I was not privileged to growing up, but I learned how powerful it was. It says the leader finds greatness in the group and helps the members find greatness in themselves. So learning the law of the inner circle. Let's get into this. No one ever does anything great alone by himself. So even inside of direct sales, you might have a leader who reaches one of the top positions, but the leader didn't get there by himself. It was because they built teams and they built people and they built leadership underneath them. You will rarely see one person at the top with no other leadership involved. In fact, it never happens. The only reason that would happen is somebody would go out and sell to a business and maybe achieve a level. But you'll typically find those people who do it that way don't remain at the top or don't remain in the business that long, at least from what I've seen. Be strategic in creating your inner circle. So if you wanted to create a group of people around you that would support you, who would you want around you? Who would you want that avatar to be? Who would you want on your team? Who would you want with you? So here's some guidelines to create your inner circle. Here are the following guidelines. Number one, do they have influence with other people? So when you look around, when this person walks into the room, do people gather towards this person? Are people already around this person? When you get, a overview of this person from other people, how is that affected? It was really easy to work with Bess because as I started meeting the people she knew, they're like, oh my gosh, there were great things to say. Other people were looking up, other people were supporting, other people were complimenting. So it was very easy to make that decision to actually be like, yes, this is a great person to work with. This is somebody who's going to add value to other people. Number two, do they bring a complimentary gift to the table? When Bess and I first sat down and talked, you know, we talked about personalities. I said, look, I'm on this side of the chart, kind of off the chart. You know, when I first took the test, I was way off the chart. In fact, Dr. Rome walked around and he looked at me and he looked at my levels. He's like, so where are your parents at on this chart? And I kind of showed him. He's like, well, we'll pray for them. I mean, he knew, like, he's like, well, I'm sure you were fun to hang out with when you grew up. Because he had a daughter that was basically off the chart as well, that he had so many issues with growing up. So he could appreciate, you know, the issues, you know, when we sat down and talked about that. Number three, do they hold a strategic position in your organization? That's pretty easy. You know, you'll see people who gain influence inside your organization very quickly. I talk about, there was a gentleman on my team that his influence was absolutely amazing. His influence was so strong because he had the ability to come to the event. The event would actually grow by 20%, maybe 25% in some cases, every time he showed up. So it was awesome to actually work with this guy because I knew if I brought him, he could bring half the room or a quarter of the room every time. I found there was another person that I was able to bring on that eventually we turned around and I was like, how many people are here? So this is kind of a tip if you're looking to build inside of direct sales. What I started doing is you want to know your number. And what I mean by know your number is when you walk into a room in an event, you want to know how many people on your team are there. And what I did is I broke it down by organization. So anybody frontline that I had sponsored, that's quote unquote an organization on my team. So what I did is I started keeping track. I would actually take inventory because you have to inspect what you expect. I had to inspect what was going on, how many people were there, whose team they were on. I had to find out how many people were new on that team. So I actually wrote down team A, team B, team C, team D, and it didn't matter, you know, the order. Sometimes it was a different order. So I wasn't labeling people like this is team A, but I would just pick, okay, this is the person I recruited at the top. This is this is leg 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way across. And then I would write down, okay, how many people are in leg 1? How many people are in leg 2? How many people are in leg 3 that are at this event? My goal started being, because of this specific company that I used to be in, I needed 4 organizations to really move. So, you know, my first thing was to get one person there. That was me. Once I knew I was showing up, then I needed one person on leg 1, one person on leg 2, one person on leg 3. And I started working very diligently to build and grow those numbers specifically. Eventually, I had pages of people. And if you go back, I have 10 years worth of notebooks of doing this, of how many people were in the room. You know, you can tell when we were at an event because it'll just be pages of these people. And at the bottom, it has, you know, new person, new person, new person, new person. And then I would actually physically go out and meet those people. So strategic position inside your organization as I started identifying who was there, what they were doing, what was going on. So that's number 3. Do they hold a strategic position inside your organization? Inspect what you expect. Number 4. Do they add value to you and to your organization? What are they bringing to the table? I would look at personalities. So even when I would circle up at the end of an event, when I would circle up with a group, I would look around to see who was there. So that way I could specifically, strategically bring on people or have people come in and speak and talk. That way I would hit everybody. I'd make sure that there was a female who spoke. I would make sure that there was somebody from the other side of town or out of town that would speak. You have to strategically do certain things and understand the group that you're in, the dynamics that you're in, so that way everybody feels included, everybody's there. We would sit and I'm like, we're going to wait and we're going to have every single person that wants to speak. But in the beginning, I would organize who started out, because whoever starts out creates the organization, creates the flow, creates the culture of what's going on. Number 5, do they positively impact other members of the inner circle? Just like there are people who can positively impact, there are people who can negatively impact. So what I would do is I would look to see who was impacting the organization and how they were impacting the organization. I would get feedback, you know, hey, what are your thoughts on this person? What are your thoughts on that person? You know, what are they good at? What are their strengths? What are their weaknesses? What do we feel we can do? How can they improve? And I would get tips from everybody else. And what's funny is instead of me saying, hey, I want to share something with you, I was able to say, I want to share something with you that I went around and got a collective group. I want to share with you all the things that were good. I also want to share you anything that can improve. And I would always ask for permission. Do I have your permission to share something with you that may be able to help you improve, that may be able to help you move forward drastically? So it's all in how you poise the question. And that would not only impact the group positively, but I was able to grow the group. I was able to create what I wanted inside the group, but I was using third party to do it rather than me saying, hey, here's what needs to happen. I learned that later after I screwed it up. For those of you who don't know, because of my personality, my initial thought is, because of the household I grew up in, they were very direct. They were like, you're stupid, you're an idiot, I can't believe you did that. You know, that's kind of the language that was used inside my house. You know, you'll never make it. You'll never be able to do this if you have this. So because I had that programming, that's how it came out every time. I'm like, man, you can't show up like that. You can't show up dressed like that. You'll never. And I didn't realize I was pushing people away left and right. Eventually, I met some people and they kind of took me aside and they said, you know, that's probably not the best way to do it. And I was like, really, why is that? And they're like, because people hate you. And, you know, John Maxwell says, sometimes you want to bring people aside and be like, you know, people don't like you, you know, and I needed that talk. You know, it wasn't that people didn't like me. They didn't like the delivery I was using. They didn't like how I was communicating with them. I was trying to help, but the way in which I was going about it was horrible. So what I learned was a technique that worked much better. And all of a sudden, the group exploded. Why? Because the group didn't hate when I was around. Because if all you're doing is pointing out everything that's wrong, if all you're doing is pointing out what's not working, people don't like being around that. And sometimes you don't even know you're doing it. You think you're helping. You know, I thought I was helping. I thought I was helping, you know, the organization improve. I'm like, don't you want to know these things? But to a D-type personality, you can come at them that strong, that hard, and typically it'll create a fight, it'll create conflict, but it will actually improve. But there's better ways to do it. If you try that with the other personalities, it's not going to work out so well. So with that, living the law of inner circle, always recruit with these traits in mind. Competence. Do they know what they're doing? Do they know what they're doing? And what I mean by it, are they aware of what's really going on? You know, I sometimes would ask questions that would be more than, what'd you think of the presentation? You know, how was the presentation? What I would ask was, I was like, how do you think the room reacted to that? And they'd be like, I don't know. What are you talking about? What? Well, how did the back of the room react to that? What did they think? What did they say? Well, how's your feeling towards that? And here's the thing. Some people didn't even know the rest of the room was there. You know, didn't you see the guy cross? I mean, you know, you have to be aware of what's happening. You know, somebody comes on, hi Becca. Somebody comes on and they cross their arms, and they cross their legs, and they cross their eyes, and they're sitting, you know, complete defensive. I was like, that person you just talked to, how'd that go? Oh yeah, it worked great, man. They're coming to the event. I said, well, I don't know how that's going to happen, because they had their legs crossed, their arms crossed, their fingers crossed, their eyes crossed. They were so narrow-minded, if they fell face forward on a tack, they'd poke both their eyes out. And you think they're coming to the event? And the person's like, well, I guess I didn't pick up on any of that. I was like, you never looked at the person. There was no eye contact the entire time you were talking to them. You were like down, giving instructions. I was like, you have to be more aware. So competence of what's going on. Second thing, character. Doing what you say you're going to do, being who you appear to be on Facebook. That would be a good one. I heard that the other day. They said there's way too many people on Facebook who are living this amazing lifestyle, but in reality, they're not going anywhere. Motivational, right? So character. Are you the person that you say you are? Do you have good character? John said that's something necessarily that, you know, you can't change overnight, but you can change direction immediately. Chemistry. I had certain people on the team, in teams still today, that there's a conflict because their personalities, because of their ages, because of their backgrounds. You know, you have to be able to see, hey, this isn't coming through. One particular lady on the team would come to me and be like, man, I just can't get this through. And I was like, well, that person has an issue with a lady telling him something. I don't know what it is, but that's what it is. And well, I'm a higher rank. They should listen to me. They should this. And I was like, well, let me ask you this. Do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? You know, because the person's going to do it if it's basically said by the right person. So what you have to do is you have to find somebody. You have to use me or somebody on the team or somebody that that person looks to, but you will never be able to get through. That's just how they feel. That's just how they look at it. So do you want to be right or do you want to be rich? Sometimes that's really upsetting, but the chemistry of what's going on, you have to be able to identify that and pick it up and, you know, figure out where you want to be on that chart. Do you want to be rich? Do you want to be right? Do you want to be sitting there going, man, I've made my point every single time and here I am still broke sitting in the room alone. Never stop improving your inner circle. It's something you constantly work on. You constantly bring up. That's why John's written so many books on equipping your team, being able to, you know, winning with people, you know, everybody communicates, few connect, which we're going to go over this coming weekend. Those are some of the key things that you need to understand to be able to build a much larger team. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess, and then we're going to move through the next part of learning the law of the inner circle.
Thanks, Jeff. This is so awesome. I got a bunch of notes already, and want to thank everybody for the likes and loves, and like to say hello and welcome to, drop my list. Let's say hello to Denise and Jacqueline and Monica and Adrian and Joyce and Lucy and Vicky and Ben. We're glad you're here. So if you're getting value, we'd love if you hit like, comment, share for people. And if you have a question, please type that in because we'll be covering questions in just a little bit, or comments or takeaways or your feedback about it too. So what I've learned is that every organization has an inner circle. Everyone, even you have your inner circle of friends socially, the people closest to you. And of course, you've heard, haven't you, that you are the 5 people who you spend the most time with, even virtually. You know, if you're reading Tony Robbins all day long, then you can count him as one of your 5. So that's good news, isn't it? And you want to choose the people carefully. Ella Wheeler Wilcox wrote a poem where she said, there are just 2 kinds of people on earth today, the people who lift and the people who lean. And I think that can include people who hurt other people. So we're either building or taking away, right? So who do you want your inner circle to be? Who do you want to surround yourself with? Who do you want to have available for support and advice? So let's choose carefully. No one has ever succeeded alone. That was kind of a wake-up call for me in business and in working with people and being an entrepreneur and a coach and even a body-mind therapist. No one has succeeded alone. Even the geese know this. When they fly in a V formation because the updraft from all of the others help them along. They can get there faster, easier, better, and farther. And they do rotate. The person up front has to work the hardest. The people at the end can ride on the updraft a bit. So they rotate. When the leader gets tired, he goes back and they can change off. But my point about the goose team was it's the momentum of the team that they know benefits each other. Well, I had to learn this because in my life previously, I have been more of a loner. I grew up or was born shy and also a rebel against traditional society. So I said, that's okay. You know, I don't think like these people. I don't agree with these people. I'm just going to go it alone. You know, so I put up my shell, my tough shell, and that included the shyness. But I had to open myself and find my like-minded people, the people who thought like me, so that I didn't close everybody out, but I could have my like-minded people. And sometimes even opposite people. And that's where Jeff and I have a lot in common, a whole lot in common, but also we are opposing personalities. He mentioned he's a D or dominant type of the DISC personalities, and I'm an S. So I'm a little I'm a little more slower and thoughtful and relationship and all, but I have enough D in me to relate to him too. But we bring this balance, as you probably noticed on the shows. And sometimes he can't get me to be quiet on here. So no one ever succeeded alone. In network marketing, it's definitely a team endeavor. No one ever made residual income by themselves, right? No one ever did that. So how does this look in network marketing? There is your inner team. You have your team, and of course you know that 90% of them probably aren't going to do a whole lot. You can count on that. Maybe 1 in 10% are going to be builders. Maybe just 1, 2, or 3% are going to be really big builders. And so you work with these people first. You work with everybody and help everybody take them to their next level. But you give your most attention and time to your inner circle, and you develop them and you mentor them. And I think Jeff will get into that in a minute, how you do that. But you give these people your time because they have earned it. They've earned it by producing or taking steps or showing up continually to meetings. They've earned it by agreeing to let you coach them, by being dependable, responsible, by contributing. As Jeff said, in those ways, when they walk in a room, they contribute and bring value to you and to the whole group. And they have high goals, and they're willing to be accountable and put action into them. So you coach, or you work with these people, you take them under your wing. And that's just the way that the natural organizations. So back to Jeff.
So guys, with Inner Circle, everyone around you needs to be on the journey of growth. That's one of the main ways you can get the Inner Circle built, is if people are growing. I consistently send out messages, hey, I just found this, would you want me to send you? So I was on yesterday with a group of leadership, and they're all in different companies. And I said, hey, would it be okay if I sent you? I just watched this amazing thing that a friend of mine, Bess, has sent me. And they were all like, yeah, that's great. Send it over. So I was able to get the information out, and you can kind of tell that some of the people who watch it come back and they're like, oh my gosh, that was the best one. Have you seen this one? So being on a journey of continuous growth, you understand who's growing, how they're helping, what they're doing. If you have an Inner Circle member who's not improving for the sake of you, your Inner Circle or your entire team, make a change in that person. Somebody who isn't growing, somebody who's not moving forward, doesn't belong in your group at the Inner Circle. Now, if that's the only person you have at this point, if it's you, sometimes you don't feel like you belong in the Inner Circle. It's something you need to change. Just start working on it. Be prepared to be an Inner Circle member for someone else. When somebody else wants, on your team, how do you become that person for somebody else? You start growing. You start being positive. You start sharing. What are you contributing to the group? People just don't want you there because you're there. What do you know? What are you learning? What are you consistently bringing to the table? You have to bring, if you want to be in bigger and bigger groups, you have to bring more value to the group. Leading others to the law of Inner Circle. So being prepared to be an Inner Circle member is a great leader. So when you're asked, are you ready? That's one of the things to start looking at. What are the groups you want to be in? And we talk a lot about an avatar. Think about the avatar of the person that you would want in your Inner Circle, and then start building from there and be like, look, these are the 5 things we value. We value growth. We value character. We value your ability to comprehend. We value your ability to set goals and achieve. This is what we're looking for inside of our Inner Circle. Anybody who wants to be in the Inner Circle. There is some inclusion, exclusion inside of this. These are the people who want to run. When we do a contest of any kind and say, hey, look, we're looking for a certain group of people. I would love for you to come into this call. So what you do is you can filter people out and say, look, there's this call at this certain time. We're forming this group, this Inner Circle group inside of our team that are going to make a run for this next promotion. They're going to make a run for this next event. You can get on the call. Here's the time. Here's the place. And what it does is you see very quickly who are the people who will come on board and who really want to make the run. Then from there, you'll have a group of people that transfer from that call. It's like building a funnel. Everybody's invited, and then certain people will fall into the funnel that actually show up. The next level is the people who show up on the call to actually be accountable to what they said they're going to do. That'll be a smaller number. And then at the bottom, the people who are actually doing it, that's where you get this Inner Circle group. they're willing to listen, they comprehend what's going on, they have character, they're showing up, they're doing what they say they're going to do, and now here they are performing. I would much rather see activity. I would much rather see activity than I would results. Because certain people can have results and they're questionable. And what I mean by questionable is sometimes people have paid for people to get in. Sometimes people have massive leverage over people. But somebody that's willing to go out and do the work over and over and over and over and over again, those are the people that you absolutely positively want to work with. Those are the people you want to be around. The people doing the work, the activity, that are taking, you know, the no's, that are taking the rejections, that are figuring it all out, that are finding out the 1% things, the things that they need to know to be able to be successful and figure out how to do this. Focus on the activity. So that's number one, is being prepared. Outline why this is good for you and how you will be able to follow these other guidelines that we went over earlier on, you know, what are the 5 things that we need to, you know, focus on to create your inner circle, the high influence, you know, understanding, being able to connect, being able to add value, those. Number 3, grade yourself on the clarity and content of your lesson. You know, what I would say is, you know, sit down with somebody and make sure you understand the game at every level, you know, inside of direct sales, the recruiting game, the team building game, the purpose of what you're doing, you know, the purpose of an event. You know, do you understand the basic stuff that's going on and why you're doing what you're doing and how you're doing what you're doing? Understanding the personalities, you know, bring people up to speed with what's happening inside of an event. Listen for the following questions to be able to identify whether somebody's on board. I have a good team, but there's kind of some trust issues of ownership. What you're doing is it's probably jockeying for who's in control of the team, who has leverage, who is the leader. Because what's ironic is before it's pointed out, people are trying to figure it out. Before the leaders pointed out, people are already trying to figure it out. Well, who's kind of important? Who's you know, who's everybody going to? You know, who's putting this together? And it's not always the person running the meeting, but usually it is. Usually it is. The person at the front of the room with the markers a lot of times has the most influence. Not always, but a lot of times. Why is it that I'm the only one coming up with new ideas? Well, it could be because you're not listening. It could be because you're not asking. And it could be because you are the leader and everybody else is looking to you for answers. It just depends on your group. That's something that you will learn to identify as you get around better leadership, and as you get around more leadership, they will help you point that out. Number 3, I feel like all the weight of this is on me. Typically what you're going to find, to be able to start a team, somebody's going to have to be the rock. Somebody's going to have to be that person that is the foundation for everything that happens. Somebody's going to have to set the pace. Somebody's going to have to set the culture. Somebody's going to have to set the speed. Who is that person? What a lot of people are doing is they're waiting around. I sat in meetings and I was waiting around for that person to show up. What I didn't realize is I kept pointing out everything that needed to happen, not realizing that I was the person that needed to lead. And eventually it hit me in the head, sort of like a brick, but it hit me in the head when I looked around and I was like, we need to do this, 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 this. And eventually I read something, you know, by John Maxwell, or I can't remember who it was by actually. And it said something along the lines of, you know, if you're the one in the room that knows what to do, then you need to step up and do it. Leadership is usually taken, not given. And I was like, oh, if you're the one that knows, if you're the one that feels like, oh, well, it should be going like this and it should happen like that, then you're the one that needs to go start it. You're the one that needs to take responsibility for it. When I flew out to California the first time, and I was in, was it Santa Fe? Now I can't remember the area. Anyway, it was LA. And I met with this guy, Sean. And Sean basically said, you know, I watched how he ran things. And I realized that Sean was the one running the event. Sean was the one who was organizing things. Sean was the one who was setting everything up. What I realized is Sean had the most influence inside of that room. Everybody in that room came up to him at the beginning, and everybody at that room came up to him at the end. And everybody that he was pointing out that was a leader was coming up to him, talking to him. he was not necessarily going to them, but people were coming to him. It's a really interesting way to, basically it establishes authority too. You can actually do this inside of an open house if you're a realtor. Watch people's reaction when you stand in the middle. Like we would normally stand near the kitchen because people usually gather in the kitchen. And when people would walk into an open house, you would have the flyer. And if you stood there, watch this. This is a really simple thing about, you know, taking control of the situation too. I say, hey, we have flyers for the event. And if you stand there and just hold the flyer out, you're being friendly, you're being open. But what you're doing is you're establishing who's in control, because if they have to walk over to you, what they just gave you was permission to lead. The same thing can happen inside of an event. Now, if you want to know that, come to an event. We'll teach you how to do it. But, you know, the same thing can happen inside of an event. But that's how we did it in real estate. It gains control of the situation to show that you're leading, you're making the forward move. Teach the law of the inner circle with a lesson on the following. Make a list of your inner circle. You know, A, who's on your team, and B, who's on their team that they feel is up and coming. We used to call it a Focus 30 group. Obviously, you have to have 30 people on your team to make a Focus 30 group. Typically, would make a Focus 30 group with people that had well in excess of 100 people on their team. In our specific company, when we first started this, you had to be an executive or above. An executive probably had 300 plus people on their team. So 300 plus people on your team, you could actually narrow it down to the top 10%. Some of the people had thousands of people on their team. So we were narrowing it down to the top 30. And in some cases, some of those people had their top 30 already developed. But this is when we talk about getting your 5 and then your 5 get your 5. We would actually make a list of your 5 and then their 5. That would be your top 30 on your team. Now, obviously, we're talking to some of the people that have established teams, that have built teams, that have, you know, executive level leadership underneath them. Not everybody is at that point yet, but that's how we would do it and find out who's on their team. What are you doing to develop them? Is there a book you're going through? Is there an audio of the day that you're sending out? Is there any personal development that you're involving them? Is there a quote of the day, question of the day that you're getting out there to constantly make people grow? Hey, what do you think of this? Sometimes people don't realize this, but sometimes I'll put out something on Facebook just to kind of get a reaction to see A, who's following, who's watching, and what people's reaction is. Yes, it's a test. What are you doing to either be prepared to be in someone else's group or make your group better? It's a good question to ask. What are you doing to prepare yourself for somebody else's group, or what are you doing to make your group better? It's something you need to start asking yourself. And then if you don't have that, come up with, hey, what would even be great things? What would be great things that you can bring on? Josh is with us. What's happening, sir? We're talking about the law of the inner circle and how important it is to have that inner group that helps you make decisions, that helps you make, you know, kind of an overview of what's going on, helps you dissect the group into personalities, who's good at what, how to build a strong culture inside of an organization. Focus 30 groups are really important. And just what are you doing for yourself? You know, create an avatar of who exactly you'd want to attract, and then start attracting those people by, think about this. If you want to attract people who love personal development, go into Facebook and look for groups on personal development. If you want to attract people who, you know, who are dreamers, go into group about dreams. You know, if you want to attract people who are working out, go into groups about health groups, and, you know, people who are working out in gym groups and people who are improving. Find people who are into nutrition. Join those groups, and then watch this. Start liking, commenting, and then instant message the people and say, hey, I really liked this, this, and this. Compliment, compliment, compliment. That was a friend of mine. He's like, if you want to meet more people, if you want to affect more people, if you want it to go better, that's the way to do it. Compliment, compliment, compliment. Hey, I just saw your post about blah, 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 blah. I really liked it. That's amazing. If it's okay with you, I'm going to take it and share it somewhere else. It's so good. That's a huge compliment, because what it does is it actually identifies, you know, not only do we have something in common, not only do I like it, but I want to move it and share it with other people. Is that okay? You're kind of asking for permission, and most people are like, of course it's okay. You know, why wouldn't it be okay to share something? But what it does is it brings you into a level of awareness of this person where this person's like, wow, they're asking me for permission. They must see me as somebody of value. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess.
Well, I just want to thank you, Jeff. I just want to underline all that stuff with a few examples or stories. Would also like to see who has a question, because this is the perfect time to type it in. We're getting ready to close here, but we will take questions, feedback. What's your favorite takeaway? Did you get one thing today that really struck you that you will commit to yourself to use in your business? So go ahead and type that in. Also want to welcome Christy, Heidi, and Brandy. If you're still watching, you guys, welcome. So glad you're here. And I do appreciate your likes and loves. I get tickled with that. So wherever we go, gosh, I took a bunch of notes again, but wherever we go, we can say, how can I contribute to this scene, right? My neighborhood has an outdoor fair, you know, an annual outdoor fair for 3 years. And how can I contribute? How can I just not go and walk around, but how can I contribute? So, you know, down the street, there's the church with the kitchen, and I really enjoyed getting in there and cooking with the women. And we're this huge team that works together like once or twice a year. And then they load up all the things that we cooked and haul it down in these little trucks to the side of the booths where they sell them. So I get to feel like I'm a part of the community because I gave service. I didn't just go and walk around and look and be an observer. It's so much more fun to give service, to see what can I contribute. And of course, I have the fun and joy of working as a team with these people, because remember, I'm still learning teamwork in myself. I'm still working against my own resistances, my own selfishness, my own, you know, small view. I'm trying to open that up. So that was good for me to do, and a lot of fun, and felt like I got to be a part of the fundraiser for that church, even though I don't belong to that church. But this is my community. So wherever I am, you know, I can ask myself, how can I be of service? How can I be of value to the people here? Whether it's a family gathering, you know, can I help put the food on the table and clean up afterward? And it's so much more fun than just sitting or being served. So wherever we are, like Jeff said, two things: make yourself more valuable. What can you do to make yourself more valuable? Number two, what can you do to make your team? So back to the self for a moment. Complimenting people is like the quickest, easiest way I know to bring value, and Jeff covered that. Wherever you are, you can spot something about the person in front of you that you like, whether it's their shoes or their watch or their shirt color or their smile or something they just said, or they held the door for you know, their girlfriend, and you can say, oh, you know, that I really like seeing that. So we see the best in others, and as Jeff said, on social media, I'll tell you, you can meet anybody of any stature. You can reach way beyond your level of influence and meet the top people in this profession or any profession by supporting their posts and liking them, complimenting, like you said, maybe a private message or right there in the posts. But reaching out, people feel good when you notice what they write and compliment them. So how you can help yourself, make yourself more valuable in network marketing, is educate yourself on the product, the comp plan, be able to be a person who can help other people understand it or answer questions. When you go to a meeting, say, how can I be of service here? You know, even if I'm just a beginner, can I set out chairs? Can I greet people? Can I help set up the demo? Now, how to make your team better. I like thinking of helping people to just their next step, whether they're a beginning person or advanced. I like to, of course, I'm not a network marketing company anymore. I was full-time for years. But right now, I'll say my team is my students, right? The students in the school that Jeff and I work with. So I love to see how I can help each one just go just to their next level. And on your network marketing team, it might be that you ask a beginning person to set out chairs. You ask a more advanced person to do the presentation or to tell one of their stories, to prepare their testimony or their story about the product or the business, which they could tell there or on a call that you do. But you try to see, how can I nourish and nurture how can I mentor this person to their next steps, ultimately leading toward leadership, of course, and see where they are at on that ladder. What rung are they on? And how can you help them get to their next rung? Just the next one, not too far up and overwhelm them and all that stuff, but just their next one. And oh, it will feel good to them. You know, if you don't, they'll feel kind of stagnant, stuck, and bored. But if you take them too far, they'll feel overwhelmed. But just take them to their next step, their next rung on the ladder, see what that is, see how you can nurture and mentor the people. And back to you, Jeff.
So guys, the law of the inner circle, you know, what are you trying to create? And this really starts out with you. Think about who you would want to be around. I mean, a lot of us sit around and we think about, oh, well, you know, I wish, you know, I heard this just recently. I wish I had, you know, better friends. I wish I had more people that were going somewhere. How do you create that? If you sat down and really said, hey, look, I'm looking for people who are centered. I'm looking for people that have it together. I'm looking for people who, you know, don't use and abuse, you know, substances. I'm looking for people who don't, you know, basically, I'm looking for people who are positive. I'm looking for people who aren't negative. If you really sat down and thought about who are you trying to be around? Who are you trying to spend your time with? Here's another good thing. Write down who you are spending time with. Write down who they are, who they were. You know, sometimes you can get a really good sense of what's going on because remember, although somebody might have changed their direction, who were they before they changed direction has a lot to do with the other people that surround it. And sometimes we hold on to a lot of those weird tics and habits, and that affects the future. That affects other people that we're around. You know, certain people have those, I don't know, those 1% things that you almost can't see that other people can pick up. The internal stuff. Some people have that self-consciousness. Some people have that, you know, I don't even know what to call it. That energy would be the right word. You know, the energy that they give off or the aura that they give off to other people. It has a lot to do with how it's affecting you and how it's affecting everybody else. If you spend time around people who are low energy, nervous energy, whatever, that energy is going to transfer to you and it's going to come out somehow with other people. They're going to see it. They're going to be affected by it. And those are the 1% things that I can't necessarily tell somebody right off the bat when I see them and say, hey, this is what's going on with you, because I can't see it right away. But eventually, if I can see who you're around and I see what their backgrounds are or what their backgrounds were, all of a sudden it starts forming a picture internally of the energy that's being projected externally. And that might sound really weird to some people, but if you've been around long enough and studied personalities and studied people's kind of inner energy and outer energy, meaning, you know, how they take things in, how they see things, and then how they project it back out. Is it positive? Is it negative? What filters are they using to see all this information? Because for those of you who don't know, everybody sees everything with a filter. If you don't think this, Tony Robbins points this out in a lot of his seminars where he says, okay, what I want you to do is we're going to do an exercise real quick. I want you to look around the room and find everything that's red. Look for red, anything that's red, anything that's red. And what you'll do is you'll find everything that's red. And all of a sudden you start becoming aware of more stuff that's red. And he's like, how many people in the room, you know, looked at something, saw it was burgundy and turned it into red just to participate, you know? And he's like, it wasn't red at all, it's burgundy, but your mind is tricking yourself into it because that's what you're looking for now. See how easy it is to kind of twist the truth and how we mess things up. He's like, okay, now stop that and look for brown. Anything that's brown, anything that's brown. And he said, you'll look around and find something that's brown. And then all of a sudden it's, you know, he's like, and you probably threw in some stuff that's tan just to feel like you're participating. That's how we can trick ourselves. He said, so what this is this is a system of what we're seeing, what we're actually looking at. Now, you become more aware of what's around, and that's why you want to start developing yourself, is you'll start seeing some of the stuff we're talking about as you develop yourself. You'll start seeing some of these tics or some of these personality traits or some of these confidence levels. You'll start seeing people's eyes, their connection with other people, how they affect other people. You just see everything in a completely different way. A friend of mine said, you know, some of the stuff that I taught him, he's like, it was almost like, he's like, funny, he's like, it was almost like it was Jedi mind tricks. He's like, I went out and I used some of this stuff and I couldn't believe people's reaction. Like, I was going to actually tell this to this guy, and I think I'm going to end up doing it. We went down to look at a car yesterday, and the guy was new to sales, and he had only been in for about 9 weeks. And he kind of walked away, and he was trying to figure out some numbers. And he came back, and he's like, okay, so here's what we have. Here's the payment. He's like, if we did this, could you sign today? You know, and it was a closing technique. And I wanted to say to him, I was like, well, obviously you learned the closing technique because he said it right. It was correct. But I said, one of the things he missed is he didn't build the rapport in the middle. So anytime you're going to ask for a close, you want to at least identify, and some of you might not even know this, you want to identify 3 times yes. You know, so, hey, you guys came down today because you were looking for a white car, correct? And people, yeah, that's what we were looking for. And we found the white car. It was in pearl white, and it was something you liked, right? Yeah, we like that, you know, the white car. And, you know, if we could find, you know, the pricing that would be right, would that be something that would, you know, make sense for you guys to do today or later, you know, at another time? Because that's where you're asking that question, and you're like, okay, where do I want to go with this? A car salesman, if you're into car sales, you want to close that day. You know, in network marketing, I said, well, does it make sense to get started right now, or does it make sense to get started at the end of the week? But in car sales, you want to close right now, because if a person walks off the lot, the likelihood of them closing somewhere else goes up drastically. So that question would be, you know, hey, is this something you can get started right now? Do you see how I got yeses before, and it doesn't seem like a closing question at that point? You can do the same thing inside of direct sales. We used to say how much, how soon, or how much, how fast, how much, how fast, how much, how fast, how many, how much, how fast, how many, and then there was the closing question. So how much money would you be interested in, you know, in making? How much time would you be willing to give if we could show you how to make that money? How long would you be willing to commit? How long would you be willing to commit to, you know, that process of showing that many people to make that kind of money? And is now a good time to get started doing that? Or you think another time would be good to get started? So you can kind of ask these questions in a bunch of different ways, but it's just getting somebody on a thought process of moving a certain direction, and then it becomes much more fluid, much more easy to be able to get to the, you know, final destination, which is, in our case, either a customer or a recruit of some sort, sign up a team member. So with that, that's what I have today for the Law of the Inner Circle. As always, you can find us every day here, Monday through Friday, at noon Eastern Standard Time on the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show. We'll be going through a lesson every single day from John Maxwell, whether it's the 21 Laws, and he has about 900 other books that we can go over. But the 21 Laws specifically is what we're concentrated and focused on initially, because this is the foundation, this is the base of all leadership. So if you guys get this stuff down, it's amazing how the rest of it comes along. So with that, I'm going to turn this back over to Bess for some closing thoughts, and we're going to wrap this up like a burrito.
Okay. Lucy went to a professional group that I belong to, realized the group has low energy. I hadn't seen it before. I had put some positive stuff into it to bring me back up. Right. So there's a, thank you, Lucy. It's a good example. There's a spiritual teacher that says, if you want to know the secret to health, you guard the 3 doors into you. That's your eyes, your ears, and your mouth. You watch what you see. You're careful and choose what you see. You're careful what you hear, and you're careful what you eat and what comes out, what you speak. So I realized that it is a choice. I realized a while back that I created like TV channels. I'm old enough to have a long. When I was little, we had TV with dials, with channels. You turn the channel, and I realized, man, that's what life is. I can choose whatever channel that I want. All of them exist. There's going to be scary things on, scary movies on TV, and informational and mental and spiritual and everything. So I just choose my reality. It's all out there, and I choose my state of consciousness. If I don't like it, I can just turn the channel. I can just make a different choice. So thank you for thank you for all your comments. If you have a question afterward, go ahead and leave that in. If you're not a member of the MLM Lunchtime Leadership Show Facebook group, just go there and request membership, and we can add you that way for notifications, replays, the free book, and everything.
Awesome. Guys, with that, we appreciate everybody for jumping on. If you can like, share, comment, we'd appreciate it. Get it to somebody who needs it. No more Netflix. Yes. Yeah, actually, you know, don't jump on and, you know, ruin your life by watching other people live it. Go out and live it yourself. Thanks so much. We'll talk to everybody real soon. Thanks for the likes and shares.